All right, here is a quick overview of what is going to be on exam 3. You can find the study guide on Canvas, and we'll start with nervous system 1. So contrast the central and peripheral nervous systems. So you need to know what structures make up each is the main thing. And then I cross this off. You don't need to know necessarily the overall functions of those two systems. Let's see. You need to know the parts of a neuron, and you'll likely be given a diagram that's not labeled, and then you'll need to say what the function of a specific part of the neuron is. With the action potentials, the main thing to know is what are the sodium ions and potassium ions doing during certain parts of the action potential. So also the membrane potential number. So for example, at rest, it's negative 70 millivolts. Let's see. As far as the sodium-potassium pump, just know what ions doesn't move and in what direction. Don't need to know what ions are moving during the refractory period. You'll need to know the myelin sheath. And the main thing about that is that when myelin is present, this will increase the conduction speed of the action potential. And then neurotransmitters are not on there, so you can cross that one off. For nervous system 2, contrast white matter and gray matter. The only thing you need to know on that one is which of those are myelinated and which are unmyelinated. So if you remember the cells that wrap around, I don't know if we covered this or not, but they're called the Schwann cells that wrap around the axon. They have a whitish color, so if it's white matter, they will be myelinated, and if it's gray matter, they are not myelinated. As far as structures of the brain and their function, you can cross off 2, the ventricles and the cerebrum, but to know what the rest are and what their functions are. Cranial and spinal nerves, know how many there are and where do they emerge from. And also, this is often missed. Remember that the cranial and spinal nerves, you're going to think since they're coming out of the brain and the spinal cord that they're part of the central nervous system, but they are actually part of the peripheral nervous system. As far as afferent and efferent pathways, know which areas of the spinal cord these nerves enter and exit from. So do they come from the dorsal side or the ventral side? Sympathetic and parasympathetic, know when these are active. So remember, sympathetic is like fight or flight type things when you're excited, nervous, and that's going to increase the heart rate. It's going to increase your breathing rate. It's going to slow down digestion. And then parasympathetic is the opposite, rest and digest. So it's going to slow these two down and increase your digestive. So that's nervous system 2. On to vision. Let's see. The anatomical structures of the eye and their functions, if we gave the function in class, you'll need to know the description or the function, but not necessarily the location, so don't worry too much about that. Knowing how the ciliary muscle responds when you're looking at near things versus far things is something that you should know, and how that affects the lens shape. In the lecture, I may have said that this won't be on the exam, but if it asks anything about the blind spot, know what exits at the blind spot. It's the optic nerve. And so there are no rods or cones there, and you can only see it when you have just one eye open and one eye closed. Homeostasis and epithelium. Make sure you know about insulin and glucagon. You can cross this one off, the different functions that epithelial cells play in the body. And these students usually get these right, identifying the different classes. So simple, pseudostratified, and stratified. Make sure you know those. And then the shapes, squamous, cuboidal, and columnar, just because the names themselves are pretty self-explanatory of what it's doing. But what a lot of students miss is what are the different tissues where each of those would be found. So I put a star there. I think it's on a pre-lecture table, so I would make sure you know that table. And down here I've underlined basement membrane. Make sure you know the definition of that. Muscular system 1. So remember we listed the components of a muscle from largest to smallest, so make sure you know that. And then it lists what those are, but make sure you can do it in reverse, so from smallest to largest if you are asked to do that. And if you know largest to smallest, just reverse it and you'll have smallest to largest. Let's see. Detail the steps in muscle contraction starting from when the action potential reaches the muscle fiber and ending with the muscle relaxing. I think there were 9 steps on this. I would be able to write those out step by step. So this is something I would practice actually like doing, memorizing. So if you're asked about a particular step, you can say what is happening there. Muscular system 2. Explain how the number of muscle fibers in a motor unit influence fine motor control. So remember, the less motor units there are, the more fine the motor control will be. You don't have to know the 4 energy molecules used by muscles to make ATP, but know which is the preferred source of energy, and that is glycogen. The muscle disorders, just know the definition of each of those, and I believe that's in the pre-lab as well. And then for steroids and Botox, know that steroids are going to increase the number of motor units, and with Botox, it blocks the release of acetylcholine. And so the message is never going to get from the nervous system to the muscle fiber, and therefore contraction is not going to occur, and so it causes paralysis. And then, of course, make sure you know what a motor unit is. It's a motor neuron and all the muscle fibers or muscle cells that it innervates. Digestive system 1. Make sure you know the layers of the GI tract, specifically the mucosa, which secretes mucus, the submucosa, which has all the vessels and things in it, and then the muscularis, which is just what it sounds like, does the muscular contractions. And then for the stomach, know the unique structures, the sphincters, the oblique layer, the gastric pits, and then also know what do the gastric pits secrete. Another main thing here, how the surface area of the small intestine is increased, and that's from those villi that go like this, to increase the surface area for absorption. And digestive system 2. So for the pancreas, know the role of each of the enzymes and hormones secreted by the pancreas. And again, I think that was a pre-lecture assignment. Outline the various functions of the liver. And what you'll likely be asked is you'll be given a list of functions, and then you'll need to decide which one is not a function. Don't worry about the structures of the large intestine and the function of those. And yeah, that was super quick. That pretty much covers it. If there's something that I didn't underline, that doesn't mean that it's not necessarily going to be on the exam. If I crossed it out, don't worry about it, but still go through and make sure you know all of these things on there, specifically the ones that I have underlined. So exam 3 will be open from October 25th to November 1st, and all Connect quizzes and practice tests are due that same day. So again, you can do this through Proctorio, which has been having issues lately. So if there is an issue, as always, send me or go through them first to through their support and their chat to get it fixed. And then if it still goes wrong from there, send me an email. But take the test early if you can, because no matter what happens, proctorial issues or not, I cannot open it beyond this date. And if you want to read through the syllabus again, the only reason I can open it beyond this date is if there is like a death in the family. And I've said this before, I know it sounds crazy. I would have to see proof of that somehow, like copy of an obituary or something. And if you are sick, it has to be that you were sick enough to where you couldn't physically take the exam, which means I would need a doctor's note stating that you were too sick to take the test. So we have to do that because there are students that make things up because they simply forgot about the exam or whatever. So we just have to use those rules of thumb for everyone. So anyway, if there's something you would like me to specifically go over in more detail, let me know. If you have any questions about exam 3, let me know. And yeah, good luck. You guys will do great.